So the technique I'm going to show you works well when you've got data that is either already entered in some source or is simply copious enough, there's enough of them, the length of the list is going to be large enough that we're going to want to sort of be able to work with and edit our data. And it turns out that Scratch will let me load data from certain kinds of text files, and so I want to make one of those text files. And so you might, if you were really observant, you might have noticed that here in the background I actually have Wikipedia up and I have the state capitals all loaded in. I looked up on Wikipedia list of capitals in the United States, and here's a list of all 50 states, right? The state here in the first column and their capital here in this next column. Well, not the next column, but one of the following columns. And so all this data is in existence for me. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply copy this data table out of Wikipedia. Right, so let me grab all of this as I can, and so I'm going to highlight it, I'm going to hit Control-C to copy it, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up an Excel spreadsheet, and so I have that here offline. Let me drag this over. Here's a blank Excel spreadsheet, and I'm going to paste that data into this Excel spreadsheet, and when I copied, I got data that I didn't need. I really want my data in my Excel spreadsheet to be only the data that I want in my list, right? So number 1 in my list should be Alabama. Number 2 in my list should be Alaska. I mean, we've already got these slot numbers here with the rows. I want to make sure that I've got all 50 of them. Okay, I do, although it seems like maybe I somehow got a little something extra here at the bottom, so I'm going to delete this just to be safe. And we'll double check this later. But now I've got my list in this spreadsheet. And here's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to do File, Save As, and I'm going to save this to my desktop on my computer. And I'm going to save it not as an Excel spreadsheet, but I'm going to save it as a CSV file. A CSV file, let me show you what a CSV file is when I'm done for those of you who don't know. But I'm going to save it as a CSV file, and I'm going to just call this the capitals. And I'm going to save that out, and I have to go through a couple of hoops. Yes, I want that to be true. Yes, go ahead and save it. That's all right. And now what I want to do is I want to actually bring up that file just so I can show you what it produced. I'm trying to find it here on my desktop on my other screen, and I'm going to open it in just a simple notepad document, right? And you'll see that what a CSV file is. A CSV file stands for comma separated values, and so what I've got is a file that has the 50 rows, actually 51. We'll work around that. And what it did was each row is a row in my spreadsheet, and it uses the commas to signal an application like Excel to know where the column ended. So Alabama was the first column, and then the comma says we're done with that. Alabama, the acronym is the second column, comma, third column, comma, fourth column, Montgomery, right, which is the capital of so column 1 is going to be the state, column 4 is going to be the capital, and we got all these commas that separate the data after that. You'll see some quotes in there because we potentially run into problems when there are actually commas in my data. So for example, this was, I think, the population of the capital, which is 205,000, and they use the comma in there. Well, this is the signal to Excel. Don't use that comma to go to a separate column. Fortunately, all that appears after what I need. Column 1 is the state. Column 2 is the capital. And so I can use that back now here in my project for the state capital quiz. I'm going to come into the state list, and rather than using the plus sign to add things, I'm going to right-click on the space in the list where the data should go, and you'll notice that I have the option to import and export. And so I want to import data, and I want to go back to my desktop, and I want to find this capitals.csv. So I'm going to click on that, and then this pop-up says which column should be used. And so Scratch is recognizing that that table had 11 columns of data, right? Because it had information about the capital, how big it was, what the population was, all of that kind of stuff. Well, so what column? Column 1 was my state, so I'm going to say column 1, and I'm going to hit OK, and look at that. Automatically, I've got all 50 states spelled correctly, assuming Wikipedia has spelled them correctly, right? Connecticut looks okay and all of that. And again, there was this empty row at the bottom that I don't really want, so I can just X that out. And now I've got my length 50 all the way from Alabama to Wyoming. And I can do the same exact thing in the capital list. I can right-click in the space, I can import, I can select my capitals, and it will say what column. The capitals were column 4, and so there we go. Row 1 is Montgomery, row 2 is Juneau, Alaska, Phoenix, Arizona, and so on. This one, for some reason, did not load that extra column. I don't know what the difference is. Something in the Excel spreadsheet, but we can real quick, it's much easier to clean that up and fix that than it is to do anything else. So now I've got my 2 matching columns that are the same exact length, 50, 50. Everything lines up, right? Olympia, 47, should be Washington, 47. Perfect. Everything lines up.